Good evening, everybody, and welcome for the final time in 2025 to the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship, supported by Everything Simulated. At the end of our fourth season of this year, we've got our first time of a non-championship battle at the front of the gold field. Sebastian Eskandari has already scored more points this season than anybody else has achieved in this series history. Admittedly, there are more races these days, but it doesn't take away from the fact he's had a very dominant season indeed. The focus tonight will be on those further behind, and indeed the Silver Class Championship, which is still wide open, has been blown wide open by Miguel Costa Texeira's win at Sebring 7 days ago. It's myself, Ian O'Leary, and Rhys Garner joining me in commentary tonight, with George Cook behind the cameras of this broadcast, bringing you live action from the Bend Motorsport Park. Good evening, Rhys. It's good to be alongside you again. An unusual circuit, I've got to say, coming out of nowhere. It seems, certainly to the non-Australian public like me. Didn't realise this was going to be a thing until it suddenly sprouted up, and it's suddenly on some major Australian and regional series. It's here for our final race as well. Not the ridiculously long GT circuit at nearly 8Ks, but instead about half of that for, I think, a fairly well balanced circuit, all told, for these Super Formula Lights.
Yeah, indeed. Love seeing the Bend on schedules. As you say, it did actually come about quite quickly. It had been in the works for a while, but once it was completed, it attracted all sorts of attention. It is the only FIA, one of only a few, FIA Grade 2 circuits in Australia, which means conceptually it could host a round of the World Endurance Championship or anything under Formula 1, basically. So, yeah, interesting to see. And the ultimate longest layout of this circuit is, in fact, the second longest permanent circuit in the world after the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So a few little claims to fame for this place, but it's got a beautiful flowing layout, few overtaking opportunities. It should provide some great racing.
That sounded like a call to arms for you there to get it on the World Endurance Championship calendar.
Please, it's already hosted Asian Le Mans Series.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, I remember that, yeah, so it is possible, definitely, and I can't say I would mind. Sebastian Eskandari, as I say, has already accumulated more points than anybody else ever has in this series, with 682. As I say, we've only started to add additional races since Season 3, but when you compare it to Mark Healy's total of 658 at the end of 8 rounds, yeah, you start to put into context what a great season it's been from Eskandari. And in terms of points, if Jack Soriano finishes in the top 10 tonight, he will have done better than he did last season as well, but it's still only good enough for second. That much is pretty much confirmed, although Mark Healy or Craig Edwards could take that off him. Thomas Hinn's the only other driver to have more than 400 points in 5th, with Danny Davis and then a few points further back. Alex Stevens, Scott Bartine, Kane Ryder, Tom Donoghue round out the top 10. All the top 21 are all gold class drivers, by the way, so that is the overall standings as well. This is silver further down, and what a fight we're going to have here tonight for this title. Alexi Watson is 4 points in front of Miguel Costa Teixeira. You'd say those are the two big favourites here, and it's perhaps even 50-50 between the two of them. We'll talk about that in a moment. Tristan McLaren is 28 back, and I think leads the charge of the sort of slight outsiders, with Marcus Konietzka and Anthony Bate then rounding out the top 5, and then you've got the proper outsiders who've got a mathematical but not realistic chance. Chris Little, Jackie Chung, Nathan Verney, Matt Tesorero, all within 100 points, which is what you need to be, but that also requires you to win an overall race, which for a silver class driver is always very, very difficult to do. So those are the sort of 3 levels of favourites, if you like, for the Silver Class Championship, and I think that is going to be a big part of our discussion point here tonight. Only 4 points between the top 2, but the interesting thing to me is that the driver in second is the one who's going to have a bit more momentum coming into this round after winning at Sebring 7 days ago, and Alexi Watson having a difficult afternoon that won't have done wonders for his confidence heading into the last race of the season.
Yeah, certainly not. And at the moment, Miguel Costa Teixeira does have a really good position in qualifying at the moment. Actually, no, I was reading the wrong standings there. The top silver driver in qualifying session yet to be decided, because everyone's still out there getting their first laps on the board. It's a nice mild day out there today, only 21 degrees Celsius in the air, 26 Celsius on the track, and no sign of rain, not much sun. So it's looking like there's plenty of grip available to the drivers here. Look at the Max Boost train here coming into turn 1. This is frankly crazy. They locked out the top 5 positions in practice, did Team Max Boost, so they've come here to fight once again.
Yeah, they absolutely have, and that's been one of the big stories actually this season as well, hasn't it? We haven't really touched on the team standings at all this season because it's been such a runaway. 214 points is the gap for Team Max Boost over Everything Simulated Racing, and that's just their first team. Of course, Team Max Boost 2 are currently in 5th place in the standings. They could move to 4th tonight with a good result, and if they do what they did in practice in the race, then they'll be on their way as well. But it does make, you know, a big difference, I feel. But and you know, not attributing Eskandari's big successes entirely to his team, but I feel like it does make a bit of a difference having so many teammates around, and it's been one of the big stories, I think, of this season, like we've never seen in this series before over the course of the 4 seasons. We have had a dominant team here, and as I say, I think them mobbing the front does make a real change to certainly the feel of these races this season.
Yeah, in some cases, it's felt like max boost versus everyone else at times. It really goes to show not only the skill of the drivers that were in max boost at the start of the season, but also the fact that they've picked up the services of some very pacey drivers like Danny Davison and Sam Mort. But we'll wait and see if they actually claim that pole position. Edwards was briefly holding on to it from Fusion Sim Racing, but Madeline McGee now running the fastest time in qualifying, and these times are only going to come down. Top time in practice was from Eskandari, the only driver to get into the 1 minute 35 second bracket. I would be expecting low 136s at least from the drivers at the top of the field.
Yeah, we are still very early. Expect those times to come down. This is on board with Alexi Watson, who must be feeling the pressure. What a fight we're going to have here tonight between Miguel Costa-Texeira and Alexi Watson. And maybe there's going to be some surprises, some twists and turns along the way as well. Watson now coming up towards the final corner, which is surprisingly open, actually, really quite committed in a Super Formula light. And then the jink to the left for the pit lane as well, which will be visited twice unless there's a lot of safety car tonight. 7th place for Watson, 5th place for Miguel Costa-Texeira. It feels like those silver class drivers have raised their game to a level that the gold class drivers, at least so far, haven't. Anthony Bate now gets in front of both of them as well. This is a high quality silver class session at the moment anyway.
Yeah, certainly is. Anthony Bate, 5th in the standings for silver, and still with an outside chance of winning the title, but he would need the race to go particularly badly for Watson, Texeira, McLaren, and Konitska for him to be able to do that. So we'll see if he can hold on to that potential pole position as Eskandari puts his first time in for the session, and Danny Davison moves to provisional pole, toppling Scott Bartine from the top of the standings. Brody McConkey putting in a time good enough for 4th place. Seeing that's Dennis Little, I think, that just got a penalty from race control for impeding in qualifying. I saw towards the end of practice Ben, who also helps in race control, says, "Lock in, Jimmy, got RC work to do," and man, they are going to be busy tonight, I'm sure.
Yeah, they certainly will be. It's going to have a bit of a last day of school feel as well, I guess, at times, which makes race control's life harder. But anyway, a couple of things just to clear up, by the way, before this session gets properly close and, well, it already is, but properly gets towards the end in the next 8 minutes or so. A couple of other things to clear up. As I say, 2 pit stops required tonight, unless there is a big safety car intervention, which there could be tonight. Word on the upcoming series here in the FDL, because there's still plenty going on. On the 2nd of December, we will start our recruitment series, which is the Formula Fords. That will visit Phillip Island next week, then the week after Lebanon, Snetterton, one of the reduced layouts there, which should be good, and the Bend will be back again on a layout that I think suits those cars, and maybe all cars I think should be used a little bit more on the west layout of the Bend, and we're going to be going there as well for the final round of that calendar, so make sure you join us for that. It'll be same time, same place, so the similar feel, but and similar drivers too, but it will be a Formula Ford series. And of course there is also, as well as the Silver Class Championship battle, the battle for the top 13 and the place to represent FDL in the Australian Open World Nationals, which I'm not sure has a confirmed date, but I think it's being floated at some point around December this year. The top 13 drivers in points here get a place on the team. Mark Healy won the individual race at Bathurst a couple of months ago. However, lost out in terms of FDL, lost out in terms of the league standings. So coming back again with 13 of the best, and it's the top 13 effectively in gold who are going to be taking that on now. Sam Mort and Ryan Borg are actually tied on, 30 points apart. That's the cut line at the moment. So a couple of drivers on the outside looking in, like Ryan Borg or Madeline McGee, maybe Mitchell Albert, James Casser, who might be able to get their way in to that top 13 with a good performance tonight, and that's one of the things we'll try and keep a little bit of cross off as well. in the last couple of moments, Miguel Costa Texera is just extending his advantage over Watson. He's only a tenth quicker or so, but the gold drivers who slot themselves in between these silvers could be so interesting, because you look back to last week again, and Miguel Costa Texera didn't actually beat Watson by that many seconds, but there was a lot of gold drivers slotted in between them, which obviously gains you quite a lot of points, and that could be crucial.
Yeah, certainly could. Keep an eye on where the gold drivers are, and make sure that there's as many of them in between yourself and your rivals as possible. That's going to be the main call to the Silver Class Championship contenders. And of course, the gold drivers have their own point standings to worry about. So there's plenty of potential for drama there. Of course, there are two subclasses of driver in this series, but they aren't scored separately. They are both scored by their overall finishing positions. So there could be a lot of potential for one of the silver drivers to really run away with it and put a huge dent in the lead that our contenders have.
Yeah, I think it's the better way to do it as well. The overall way of doing points here, I do prefer, I must admit. It does allow for that little bit of changeable conditions at the top of the standings, which is what you need in a title fight. Watson goes a bit quicker, but only very slightly. Stays 20th, doesn't even gain any places, despite the really close nature of that sort of outside top 15 sort of region here. To be fair, the top 24 are covered by a second. The gaps to the overall leaders aren't actually that large, but it is a max boost 1-2. The only driver, as Mark Hilly actually joins, the only driver who was up there challenging those guys was Craig Edwards. It's a bit of a shame that the likes of Edwards and Hilly, who are currently 3rd and 4th respectively in the standings, by the way, haven't been able to make more of their efforts this season, because they've shown flashes of brilliance, as they often do, but Hilly's not been able to defend his crown this time round, and that goes on. And they've been very much overtaken by the max boost train of the likes of Eskandari and Davidson, especially towards the end of this season.
Yeah, indeed. There's a couple of elements to that, I suppose. The first is the sheer numbers that Max Boost has. They have the most drivers of any team in the field, but also all the drivers are very skilled, and they can work together well and help each other with setups and the like. Mark Healy and Craig Edwards, they are both the only drivers racing for their respective teams. Healy for Orbit Drop Bear and Edwards for Fusion Sim Racing. So they have a comparative lack of support, and they have to basically just do more of the setup work themselves, and sometimes it can be very beneficial to have at least one other driver in your circle that is going to provide you with data and set up hints, and say in X corner this happens, in Y corner this happens, what can we do about that? And it can really help you to have a team behind you.
Yeah, it really does. You almost let them do your practice for you, although you've obviously got to do the work yourself as well. It does help. There is Davison, who, by the way, has entered a round 8 of this series. Always 8 rounds in series, by the way. Has entered round 8 in the past as a championship leader, but has left not, which is it was a big shame for Davison. It was a final race at Zandvoort where, ironically, he was overtaken by quite a lot of teammates and displaced from the championship lead. And his search for a title goes on. He may get a top 5 this season. Haven't seen Hinz in this session particularly, down in 10th at the moment. So that's definitely a part of the order we could see some change here. Just 23 points the gap that Thomas Hinz has over Danny Davison. And that's going to be a battle for 5th place. Just a word on Thomas Hinz, by the way, because I know you will have known him for quite a while, Reese, but I'm amazed at how he continues. He finished 4th we had 2 seasons in the previous iRacing season, an F4 Championship and Super Formula Lights. He managed to finish 4th in both, really without being noticed by anyone. And he's also top 5 of these standings without really being noticed. I mean, I haven't seen him very often through these last few weeks. Just so consistent, so good at staying out of trouble that he sneaks top 5s without anybody really realising.
Yeah, he's a bit of a silent assassin, is Hinsey. He always puts the work in. You always see him giving maximum commitment to the races that he can make. Of course, sometimes his work schedule takes him away from running a full-time campaign in many high-profile series, but whenever he turns up, he's always there or thereabouts, and he has a lot of skill behind him as well, always pushing hard. So we might not focus on him as much as we do other drivers, but he is always a factor. Currently now 11th, as it would appear another couple of drivers have made improvements. Kane Ryder getting up to second place in the qualifying standings at the moment. But just staying on board here with Hinsey, you'll see some of the highest commitment corners around this track. Now, in a tin top, these corners are super challenging. In a Super Formula Light, they are flat out. Just listen to this. Hinsey does not lift at all until here. And in a supercar, you're lifting off the power through those kinks. You're trying to feed the power on and control the grip, and then you're braking before the left-hander and carrying the brakes through it as Hins unfortunately takes too much curb out of there and just bumps the barrier with the left rear. But yeah, one of the little quirks of this layout, as someone joins him, yeah, the Super Formula Lights, they produce an awful lot of downforce and they can carry a huge amount of speed through these turns. That tells me that dirty air might be something that'll affect the racing tonight.
Yeah, very good point. Turn 13 might be a bit of a hotspot as well, and it turns out, as Thomason's just proved it to us, you can hit a wall round here. I didn't think that was possible, but it is clearly. So there we go. As you said, another thing actually that's very different compared to the V8 Supercar, which is the only racing I've seen here in the real world, I must admit. The braking through turn 5 and 6, which is a very tight hairpin, is a lot more comfortable in these cars. They are a lot lighter, and therefore able to stop a bit easier. In a supercar, you barely stopped going through turn 5, which again is a bit more of a corner as well, before you have to stamp on the brakes and try and get slowed down in time for, as I say, a real tight hairpin. But hopefully, because these cars are a little bit more under control, you can think about the braking zone a little bit more as an overtaking chance, and maybe that will be something we see in the race as well. Sebastian Eskandari looks like he's taken another pole position then in front of Danny Davison, who did improve there late on to get ahead of Kane Ryder. And so late on, it's a max boost 1, 2, 3. Madeline McGee and Sam Mort are the other max boost drivers in the top 10, and the fact that Sam Mort is here will probably mean that the top 13 at the start of tonight that you will have seen on those championship standings will probably be the same as what we see at the end of the day as well. So we'll bear that in mind as we go along. One less thing for us to focus on. In silver, Miguel Costa Texeira just puts it out of sight. So 16th place. You just saw him go over the line there. Bate following him around the circuit gets to 22nd only. But look at Alexei Watson. He starts the day 9 places behind his big championship rival. And there is even worse news. 10 seconds of a time penalty at the end of the race to Alexei Watson for qualifying impeding on Jackson Rihanna.
That is disastrous for Alexei Watson. Coming into this round as the championship leader, he wanted it to go as well as possible. At least try to shadow Texeira, who's come to this round with a great amount of pace. All it takes is one small whoopsie and a look in from race control, and I think he can. Oh man, I don't want to count him out completely, but it's going to be a Herculean task to defend that championship lead now.
It absolutely is. Goodness me. It's a slender lead, but he has got, first of all, yeah, seconds, time to make up on the grid, and time to make up in terms of those 10 seconds as well. Sebastian Eskandari then takes pole for the final race of this season with Danny Davison alongside and Kane Ryder rounding out the 1, 2, 3. Reigning champion Mark Hilly starts the last race. He'll have that number 1 in his car for now in 4th place with Craig Edwards and Scott Bartine, another previous champion then on row 3. Tom Donahue and then Ryan Borg are on row 4, had Madeline McGee and Sam Mort who round out the top 10. Brody McConkie and Thomas Hinz are on row 6 in front of Jackson Rihanna, who is in impeded by Watson in that session. Alex Stevens rounds out row 7, who was dug down 15th for Miguel Costa Texera on pole in the silver class. Golds run out the rest of the top 20 though. Dan Ackland, Angus Milne, Matthew Vince, and in 20th place, a little bit further down, was Julian Sanese. James Casa 21st in front of Anthony Bate, who's second in silver. Vaughan Ryder, then Marcus Kitska, who's third in silver, then Alexi Watson, 9 places behind the pole sitter in this class. Mitchell Albert alongside Jackie Chung and Jake Robillard on the first all-silver row, and row 14, which is quite a long way down. Dion O'Neill and Matt Tesoro round out the top 30. Tesoro, the last of the outsiders, real outsiders for the championship. Nathan Verney, Dylan Liddell and Daniel Byrne should round out the field here tonight of 33 drivers. So everybody will score some points, but the points that matter are for those in the silver category. And another thing that, by the way, Watson is going to have to hope for here is no safety cars tonight, because the way that the safety car works means that the time gaps suddenly really shrink, and that's no good for him with a 10-second time penalty. So he's got to hope for so much to go his way now.
Yeah, it's going to take a miracle for Alexi Watson to keep the championship lead out of here. Track temperature has gone up, meanwhile, through qualifying. It's now over 30 Celsius. The tyres will be up to temperature quickly, but I think the drivers might have to start managing those tyre temperatures if they're not careful. A lot of high-load, high-speed corners around this circuit. Also worth pointing out, for those of you who are keeping track, we also have 10-second post-race time penalties for Dylan Liddell, correction from before, and Jake Robillard for, again, impeding in qualifying. So that's 3 cars so far who are going to have to add another 10 seconds on towards the end of the race. For now, though, everyone filing onto the grid, ready for that very long run into quite an open first corner.
Yeah, we've seen plenty of trouble through that first sector in the supercars races in the past. It's a very unusual first 3 corners. Trying to sort of remember what it really reminds me of, but I can't quite put my finger on it at the moment. It is very unique, and as you say, sort of funneling down from a very wide run in towards turn 1, and a very long run from the start line as well. It's really early on in the straight is the start finish line here. In fact, the finish line is pretty much straight out the final corner. The start line is a little bit further down. As we finally get the lights on, we've got Brody McConkey starting from the pit lane, but here we go. For those on the racetrack, the green flag waves for the final time in the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship here this season. It's powered by Everything Simulated. It is Match Boost 1, 2, 3, and Mark Kelly trying to get amongst them. He wants to go through the middle, but he's going to have no space there. Kane Ryder boxing him in. Oh, lock up wide from Danny Davison in towards turn 1, and immediately he loses places. Craig Edwards is going to try and challenge him for 4th, and this is going to be dangerous for Danny Davison. He should slot into 5th position at least, or maybe he will continue to fight for 4th, but there's the missing of the braking zone. We don't often think about that on lap number 1, but he completely got that wrong. He is going to hold on to 4th place at least.
Yes, indeed, but he has another slide coming out of the hairpin, and that's going to give Edwards the run up the inside through these never-ending right-hand kinks. Edwards himself gets a bit crossed up on the curb, and Davison has to lift out to let him go.
That was really close. Davison dipping a wheel on the grass, which at that sort of velocity, you'd think through turn 9 and 10 would send you straight off into the expansive bit of grass that they've got on the outside of that corner. But look at the break in the group here. It's another story about this track that we don't always think about, but the technical nature of it means you lose so much time in these side-by-side battles.
Yeah, in some ways the bend is a driver's circuit. There's enough elevation change here to call it that, but the majority of the circuit is very technical. It's a new track. It's got a smooth surface. Hasn't really had time to settle down into the earth like most racetracks have been around for a while have. Tom Donoghue moving back past Alex Stevens here. A little bit of a cross up there through the final corner. They'll slow each other up as a result. That final corner is flat out in these cars as someone goes off in quite a big way there. Looks like Jackie Chung losing a couple of spots there on the first lap, but everyone's managed to work themselves out okay. We still have all of our starters running. Question is, how long is it going to take for something big to happen? Right now, Vaughan Ryder and Anthony Bate are off at turn 1.
Yeah, an outsider for the championship, Anthony Bate in the silver class, but has gone off there And that's another couple of places for Alexi Watson, by the way, who's only made up places because of problems for others so far. Brody McConkey, Vaughan Ryder, and also Anthony Bate dropping down have given him those 3 positions he's gained already here. This is the battle in the midfield meantime as Sam Mort slips through on Angus Milne and challenges Doug Gowans as well into these fast right-handers, but very, very difficult to do so. I mean, and also because of this section alone, I think you are correct to call this a driver's circuit, because it's properly flat out through there. Maybe lacks challenge because it is so flat out through there, but it's certainly not a place for side-by-side until you get to the sort of end of the lap and the start of the next one.
Yeah, for sure, and especially this sequence here where you dive down into the bowl. Madeline McGee with Thomas Hinz right on the back of her, and on your way to the final few corners. Poor run for Hinsey out of there, almost gives a run to Gowans and Mort. But we'll have to wait and see if that translates into a run onto the start-finish straight. Our top 3 breaking away very nicely. Sebastian Eskandari, Kane Ryder and Mark Healy also the fastest on the circuit as Davison moves past Edwards into the first turn in the background there. Oh, hello, Giuliano Sinesi, who got a lightning start, by the way. He moved up quite a few positions on the way into turn 1, getting a little bit of a biff there from Angus Milne, and Miguel Costa Texera, our silver championship championship rival, you could say, to Alexi Watson, right behind them as well. He's still in a pretty good position.
Yep, he is, but the longer this goes on in front, the more positions that Watson can gain and the closer he can get to Miguel Costa Texera as well. 17th gets you 25 points, and therefore Watson would need to be 19th to tie on points, and then it could get complicated. Sam Mort, though, drops down the field, so he's had a decent start, but unfortunately problems in the last couple of moments, and he drops now down to 17th. That's another position for Miguel Costa Texera to take away with him, and this is going to be the story for constantly throughout this race of positions changing and this championship battle swinging one way and then the other.
Replay here of Matthew Vince. Something going wrong for him here at the penultimate corner, and that's contact between the Turbo Bros teammates, unfortunately. It may have been James Casser that he made contact with, if I'm not incorrect, which I certainly have been in the past. Hello.
Oh dear, this is how Bate went off. I thought it was just sort of silly in towards turn 1, but actually it was 3 wide and he didn't realise, and so spins to the outside. And that's the story at the end of this straight. It's so mixed, this circuit, with that long straight down in towards turn 1 and the sort of lack of overtaking chances, really, you get round the other side of the circuit. That flat out long right-hander, for example, making it very, very difficult. But down towards turn 1, great overtaking chances down there. And they're being used in this group. This is from 13th on to the very back of the field, really, and contains the whole silver class field.
Certainly does. Yeah, the highest silver driver is, of course, Miguel Costa Texera, who's the only driver in this group to still occupy the same position he started in. But let's see if Sam Mort can do anything about that as he tries to make a recovery from his off at this very corner earlier on. A little bit closer in to these sweeping corners, which sort of act as a chicane slash S-bend in the tin tops. Certainly fun to throw a GT4 car around this layout as well, but oh dear, that's not ideal for Texera. Off into the grass, coming through the right-hander, and now Mort does the same thing. They'll trade each other back. Daniel Ackland sniffs a chance to move his way back up the field.
This is not what Miguel Costa Texera needs at all, but he is he's surviving at the moment, staying out of trouble, which I guess is one of the more important things here. Dan Ackland queuing up next in line. Then it's Konieczka, then it's Watson. So it's all happening here. Further up front of the field, it's single file between Edwards and Bartine. Hinz and Stevens go side by side. Thomas Hinz making places here side by side through the first chicanes again. And Hinz pulls in front through the second part of that. And then in the background, look at that for Miguel Costa Texera side by side briefly. And Knitska is there with Ackland. So it's, oh, yeah, there he is wide. And again, dangerous moments here for the championship leader on the road, I guess you can call him, Miguel Costa Texera, who again holds on from people who are faster than him. Daniel Ackland is probably faster than him, but struggling to get through.
Yeah, and you know it's an interesting hairpin that at turn 7, I guess you could call it. It's difficult to actually make the move because the brake markers are positioned before the track actually starts curving away, but it's a bit earlier than you'd expect for the actual braking zone to the apex. The corner sort of blends into itself and tightens on the way through, so it can be very difficult to pull a move off there if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, absolutely. This circuit, it's easy to forget, hasn't really been in our racing for that long. Certainly doesn't have the wealth of experience for everybody that some of the other venues we've been to this season might well do, like the likes of Sebring last week, for example. Been in our racing forever, feels like. This, meantime, is down into turn 6 again. Vaughan Ryder, and he's been making contact down the field again. Is that Brody McConkey, maybe?
I think it might be. Not sure.
I saw 23, but you know the numbers are quite small, so I couldn't see. But I think it was McConkey. But that's certainly front wing missing for Vaughan Ryder, who perhaps unsurprisingly has had to come into pit lane to get that repaired now.
Yeah, certainly. Well, Vaughan Ryder's going to jump into the pits as well. Joining James Casser and Matthew Vince, unfortunately the teammates who made contact on the replay earlier. Haven't seen Vince re-emerge from the pit lane, so I think he might be done for the day. But everyone else continuing on as they are, and keeping an eye on positions gained and lost. It looks like the hard charger is actually just outside the top 20. Dion O'Neill in the 316 has gained 8 positions so far in this race. This is just inside the top 20. Meanwhile, Daniel Ackland trying to hold off Marcus Knitska, and Texera taking a bit of an alternate line there, I think maybe to break the draft or potentially clear a slowdown. I didn't see any indication of that, but for the moment, still running all right. Has to keep an eye out for Knitska, though. Only separated from Texera by 1 car, and that could be pretty big for the silver class battle if these two start fighting each other.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, it's a long way to go for Watson to get involved here in the championship battle. And to give you an idea, Knitska is quite a long way back as well. Starts the day 29 behind Miguel Costa Texera, so he's a lot to be going his way as well. But it's starting to group up here as O'Neill goes on the defensive from Jackie Chung, and Mitchell Albert is in there as well, 23rd, one of those drivers on the outside the top 13 looking in today, but he is not in a position to maybe join them inside that top 13 for the moment. Side by side between Ackland and Knitska here in towards turn 6, and outside line for Knitska might work. He's just given maybe a slight bit too much room. Obviously, you don't want to give not enough room. That will get you penalties and stuff, but maybe just gave him a little bit too wide of a berth there through turn 6.
Yes, indeed. Well, Race Control have just brought in a 5-second penalty for Doug Gowans. Looks like insufficient racing room there, and understandable. I think Gowans was involved in a couple of incidents earlier on in the start of the race, but aside from that, we will have the battles continuing here, keeping an eye very closely on the battle through the end of the lap here. Texera, Ackland, Knitska, Watson, they're still trying their best to get into some sort of rhythm, but I think we're starting to see the dirty air effect come into play here, Ewan, because these guys aren't getting as close to each other as they previously were.
Yeah, maybe that is starting to become a bit of the story here, because not going to be overheating their tyres, particularly from the track temperature, although it has gone up to 31 degrees since qualifying. It's still not really anything to write home about. The dirty air is having a bit of a role in this one. as just in behind this three. Bit of side-by-side between O'Neill and Watson again, and Alexei Watson is starting to slip through the field just a little bit here. Or is it Dion O'Neill making places? That's the 9th position gain there for O'Neill. This is further up the field, and Stevens, Donahue and Madeline McGee looking like they were thinking about 3 wide there towards turn 6, but thinking better of it. It's the battle for the last spot inside the top 10.
Yeah, looks like Tom Donahue getting some pretty good runs in the slipstream there, but once they start having to negotiate the corners again, it becomes a bit more difficult to stay in touch with Alex Stevens, who's made his way into the top 10 from 14th. It's been a pretty good run for the 95 thus far. Still a very long way to go. This is a 1-hour race, remember, with 2 pit stops likely required for everyone in the field. So I think this is just a case of get into your rhythm, consolidate your pace, see where you are, and try to figure out your strategy from there as Donahue goes a little bit deep in the penultimate corner.
I've been seeing already that I think they're going to go quite a long way on this fuel load. I expect 13 laps out of it at maximum, but don't forget in this series you can stop anytime from lap 1, and so those who are down the field at the moment could be back in the game a little bit later. Side by side and towards turn 1 again here with Donahue involved, and Madeline McGee as well. Inside for the second part, outside again though at the last part here, which is going to be a problem. Donahue might be able to squeeze her out, but not quite. This is what happened with Stevens and Donahue last time round, but this time it's Madeline McGee on the inside line, and Juliana Senese looking to maybe take both of them here inside of a 3 wide moment in towards turn 6. Another one of those very open corner entries that he's been able to use very well there, Angus Milne. Juliana Senese, sorry. Tom Donahue loses out on a couple of positions, and McGee will keep that position she just gained, but that was opportunistic and very nearly very successful from Angus Milne.
All aboard the train. Angus moving up a couple of carriages. 10-second penalty to car number 38. That is Vaughan Ryder for no cornering overlap. I believe that was the earlier contact with Brodie McConkey that we caught on the replay. So race control once again very busy. Now let's see what these drivers can do here in the final sector. McGee going sort of preemptively defensive into the penultimate corner. Just about one of the slowest on the circuit. It is a lot tighter than you think from in the driver's seat, and you have to really carry the brakes through the corner to even have any hope of making it out the other side. As into the pits we see Sam Morton. He's hit the pit lane attenuator. He's lost his front wing and heavy damage to the front suspension.
That is highly unusual. Meantime, as Milne gets through on Madeline McGee, you don't see that too often. I mentioned the pit entry here because it is slightly unusual. The way that you turn left straight away out of the final corner there to actually come down pit lane. But let's see how this has actually happened, how he's sort of wrong-footed himself here. Was he indecisive in making his call here? He locks up. Oh no, he's trying to get it slowed down in time for the line, and it's one of the few points on this circuit where the walls are very, very close by to collect you, and that's a bit unfortunate, really. Easy to look at that and say, well, it's not exactly moving, it is the pit wall, but yeah, he's trying to get it slowed down not to be speeding, and instead he's suffered something perhaps even worse.
Yeah, another thing I can tell you from personal experience is that if you want to try and go for a pit stop at the bend, you have to be prepared to brake incredibly early. That pit lane speed limit comes up a lot quicker than you think, and depending on the car, sometimes you have to start braking on the racing line on the exit of the final corner, which can certainly mess things up if you're in a pack. So unfortunate for Mort, but he's gotten repairs done and is continuing on. Dan Ackland, meanwhile, had an off at the final corner, hit the sausage curb on the inside. Of course, the Bend, being a modern venue, has those sausage curbs at a few apexes, and they certainly don't like cars going over them. Danny Davison, next car from the front of the field to come into the lane. It looks like Max Booster generally trying to go for an earlier first stop here.
Yeah, it does. I would be surprised if the leaders joined them, though. Kane Ryder and Sebastian Eskandari, and join the lead that they currently have. And by the way, I'll add completely pointless sausage curbs because this circuit, despite being very newly built, has done a good job at lining it with grass so that you don't have track limit problems, yet they've created ones of a different kind, but never mind. Julio Sneze, meantime, spins going in towards turn 6. Was trying to make an overtake on Madeline McGee there on the outside line, but spins into the outside of the corner and allows a whole load of drivers through, including the silver class leaders, who all gain a place each.
Yeah, so that makes Miguel Costa Texeira up 2 positions, Marcus Kanitska up 9. Marcus has had a really good run thus far in this race, and now only shadows Texeira by about 8-9 tenths of a second. So potentially Texeira is going to have to start looking over his shoulder shortly, but for the moment he is controlling this race well and putting himself in the box seat to win the championship. But again, still early days. We've only just gone past 1/4 time on this race as we focus back in on Kane Ryder and Sebastian Eskandari, who are making their way nicely away from Mark Healy, who is having connection problems. Race Control have given Healy a warning for his connection at the moment. The Max Boost 1-2 looks safe.
Yeah, he has been very noticeably dipping in and out, actually, as Healy today, which is a bit unlike him, but a little bit off-putting as well. He was initially staying with these leaders, but no longer. Craig Edwards leading the charge behind as well. 4th position for him at the moment. Jackson Rihanna's made it quite a lot of places and is now in 5th place, up 8 so far. And I guess it is those kind of qualifyings, isn't it? Qualifying down in 13th that have maybe undone him at times this season. He qualified 23rd, for example, at the opening round of the season, which has rather undone him. Aragon, he qualified in 12th place, so they're outside the top 5. Only on 4 or 5 occasions this season has he qualified inside the top 5, and when you contrast that with Eskandari, who hasn't qualified outside the top 5 at all, you start to understand a little bit of the story as to why the gap is so large between the two of them.
Yeah, it's been a difficult season for Rihanna, and I suppose for next season he'll be focusing a lot more on his qualifying efforts. He can certainly outrace people, but yeah, this is the kind of series where qualifying is half the job. As another puff of
Watson.
smoke there. Oh no, Watson's in the wall, and that's out of the final corner. Okay, I think his championship might be over. And Mark Healy, that was the puff of smoke at pit entry. He went for the pits, but got a mechanical black flag. Hins and Gowans jump into the pits, but my goodness, this is incredible, the scenes that we're seeing here. Watson still hasn't pulled out of the car, but I think he's I think he's just
now he's towed. So has he got permission, first of all? But is there going to be a safety car? Second of all, it's the sausage curb, and he's gone in hard at turn 13. I think that is actually. They look very similar.
Yeah.
And he's missing his rear left, which is preventing him from getting anywhere. Now, have we got away without a safety car here or not? It looks like not, because Alexei Watson, or indeed we have, I think, because I don't see anyone making their way out for the moment. So it looks like we're going to stay green 20 minutes in here, but Alexei Watson, you've got to say his championship chances are over. Even if drop weeks did apply, which they don't, it would still be the case because Miguel Costa Texeira is doing so well tonight. This is the other story. Mark Healy getting a meatball flag here. And is he the second driver to go in? He is the second driver to go into the pit wall. And he's right in front of oncoming traffic, which he does a good job of getting away from, but look at the damage.
That's huge. Thank goodness these cars have one fast repair, as into the pits come all of our leaders. Ryder, Eskandari, Edwards, Rihanna and Bartine are all in. And it looks like we're going to be seeing everyone follow them in there. Hang on. Is this a safety car?
It looks a bit like it, doesn't it? But I think it's just a traffic jam, to be honest. top 18 are all going to have to come in here, by the way, because this is the limit, or it should be, unless anybody's been fuel saving quite dramatically. It should be the fuel limit for all of these guys as they now come to a stop at the end of the box. And Ryder gets going, and so does Eskandari at the same time. Edwards with a slightly shorter stop there, 4.9, which gets him a lot closer to the front two, but Eskandari takes the lead away from these guys. And that's back to where he started, of course, on the pole. Look at this traffic jam coming out of the pit lane as well. Very, very busy. This is what happens when 18 of the field, more than half, decide to wait until the very end of the first stint.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was really in a position to try an undercut or something to that effect. Danny Davison, having come into the pits a few laps ago, has rejoined in third place, it seems. So good to see for Danny Davison. He had his early issues at the start of the race, but he's recovered very well. Potentially, though, he might have, at the very least, a very long second stop coming up for him.
Yes, certainly compared to the others around. Angus Mill making his way out of pit lane here. Has he gone straight onto the circuit and straight off again? Yes, he has. Oh, and that's the advantage of the fact that it double backs on itself there, the chicane. Not even sure if you get a slowdown for that, but he's still 10th, so it can't have been too bad. Actually, he's under attack here from Douglas Gowans. Careful through turn 13. That very much seems to me, I mean, we saw it in practice, and we're seeing it in qualifying rather, and we're seeing it again here. It's so far in the race with Alexia Watson's crash. That, to me, seems like the most dangerous corner on this circuit. At a track where it's quite hard to crash and actually damage your car, that seems like the real place to do it.
Yeah, it's an uphill corner. It's blind on the exit. You can't actually see the exit of the corner when you turn in. It's over the crest, and it's high commitment, especially in these cars with all the downforce you have available to you. So it's not surprising to me that we've seen at least a few drivers hit it, but unfortunately it seems a few of them, crucially our Silver Championship leader, have not been able to avoid doing it in the race. Tom Donoghue at the inside of Angus Milne at turn 1 manages to keep it on the circuit, and that looked like an easy move from the outside. I'm sure it wasn't the case from inside the cockpit of that car. Donoghue, with a bit of a livery change for this round, seems to be running a 2006 to 2013 era McLaren livery, as Milne jumps back up the inside at the turn 6 hairpin. Collects some gravel and dirt on the exit, though, which is going to hurt his run through the following corners. But I think Donoghue's going to have a hard time getting past him with how quick and short these corners are.
Yeah, it's a proper livery. This from Tom Donoghue. And I don't, God knows what paint they use for that livery, by the way, but it shines like you wouldn't believe. So anyway. That's the, as you say, the sort of old-style McLaren livery. A bit of oversteer through turn 13. And Kanitska and Miguel Costa Texeira are the ones right in behind. So Miguel Costa Texeira effectively has assumed the championship lead now on 154 if we're counting Alexia Watson as out. He's actually back out on the circuit again, but the chances of him doing anything from here are very, very slim indeed. Marcus Kanitska's deficit there to him is just, what did I say earlier, 29 points, I think I said. And that's going to take some changing. Eskandari, meantime, might have made his first mistake of the season. He's just lost the lead, and he's in the clutches of Craig Edwards now, indeed. I wonder whether something's gone wrong for him through the first 3 corners here. It would be a very rare mistake if indeed that is what's happened, but he's definitely dropped to 3rd position somehow.
Yeah, I've just noticed what happened, and well, it looks like the sausage curbs are going to be a big point that we'll be talking about today. This time it was the sausage curb on the inside of turn 2 that got Eskandari. Fortunately seems to have avoided damage, but he did a little bit of lawn mowing and allowed Kane Ryder through. Well,
that is something you don't see too often. Sebastian Eskandari with trouble here tonight. A driver who hasn't finished outside the top 2 since round 4 and the Montreal feature race, which was, as Ryan Borg described it to us after the race, more of a, had the look of an international airport than a racetrack at some stage. There was all sorts going on, and Eskandari was one of those who was taking flight at one stage. But since then, this entire second half of the season, he has been in the top 2 at the race finish without fail. And as I say, he's gone on to accumulate the biggest points total this series has ever seen, with a round still to spare. There it is, a 140.3 on this lap time, just underscoring that mistake. But it's a complete free hit for him and his Max Boost teammates here in this final round. So makes me wonder just what kind of a battle they're going to have towards the end, and how they're going to treat each other as teammates or as complete rivals in the last stint of this race, I wonder.
Well, Eskandari doesn't really have anything to lose at this point. He won the championship last round, so the pressure's off in that sense. I suppose now we'll see exactly what he's like when he's chasing. The only other little blemish on Eskandari's season was when he ended up losing the win in round 1 thanks to a safety car procedure violation. So all up, one of the most dominant seasons we've seen in FDL history, but even the best of us can make mistakes around a circuit as brutal as this one's turning out to be. This is what happened to Mitchell Albert at turn 1. Another driver that's gone deep. It's a braking zone that's incredibly hard to pick, and to make matters worse, he had to stop and wait for the rest of the field to go by. You don't want an unsafe rejoin there, because you'd be rejoining at basically the track out point for turn 1, and you can't exactly alter your line if a car appears out of nowhere in front of you there.
And you might be wondering why he didn't run through the grass and the gravel like Angus Milne did earlier on. Well, he's already a lap down, is Mitchell Albert, so he was being lapped by those guys. Clearly didn't want to get in their way as he was rejoining the circuit again. Some very long stops first time as Dion O'Neill goes off here. There he is through turn 13. It's turn 13 again. Some very long stops first time round for 2 big names, Mock Hilly and Jackson Rihanna. We saw the reason for Hilly's, but I think Jackson Rihanna sped on pit lane, which meant he had that 40-second penalty as well as a 6-second stop, and that has sent him all the way down to 24th. Now, if Hilly was up towards the front as well, he would have been able to take advantage of that and maybe take second in the championship. Then it goes down to Craig Edwards, who really has to be in the top 2 here tonight to be thinking about taking it away from Rihanna. But with Rihanna regaining places here, Edwards probably has to win, and at the moment he's down in 4th. But again, this pit entry is clipping a few people and speeding in the pit lane, which is pretty uncommon.
Yeah, and it's such a brutal penalty that you get when you speed in the pits, and it will increase depending on by how much you exceed the pit speed limit by. So I think he got away with the minimum that you get for exceeding the limit on the way into the pits. At the moment, Rihanna down in 24th place, and he still has some great advantage over just about everyone around him, running about half a second faster than the cars in front. So we'll see what goes on for him with 30 minutes just about remaining in this race. We are almost halfway through the final round of the FDL Super Formula Light Season 4. And Madeline McGee, who was an element up the front of this field for ever so briefly, sitting where she started in 9th, with Doug Gowans trying his best to make some moves on her. The slipstream is so strong in these cars, and this front straight is the perfect place to see that happen.
Not close enough this time for Gowans, as we ride on board with the Full Throttle Racing driver. Top 5 so far on qualifying. As you say, behind McGee, exactly where she started, one of only 2 drivers to still be in that position. Dave Davison being the other. It's very common in this series to see so much change, as it's a bit late from Gowans, who'll grab a late apex, and it's a surprisingly important exit it's turning out to be through there, because it's a fast run then through, not a straight after that, but a long right-hander into finally this chicane that bears a little bit more thinking about. But that's a long run on the full flat out, and again, maybe we are seeing that little bit of dirty air there, just unable to get quite as close as you need to be, you know, staying close-ish, but not able to get quite as close as you need to be to actually get past, and that's maybe what Gowans is struggling with a bit at the moment.
Yeah, and these turns up the near the end of the lap, there's a lot of speed you carry through them as well, and any aero disturbance is going to compound. I guess another element of the importance of the exit of turn 6 is, and also here at the penultimate corner and final turn, is you need to build up enough speed on the way into those fast corners for the downforce to do its job. If you take those corners a bit too slow, you won't have as much air running over the wings and you won't have as much grip. So that just underscores how important the exit is. Side by side between Gowans and McGee, he got the run on her, and now he is through into 9th place. Very good job for the man who took victory in a Bathurst special event on Friday, driving a Radical to victory over 3 hours. As well, things are starting to compound for Madeline McGee. Looks like she's just gotten herself a 5-second penalty from race control as well.
A minor violation, hence why it's only 5 seconds. So Douglas Gowans has got one of them as well. For an incident with Sam Mort, but Madeline McGee's is for one with Angus Milne. This is, Vernie
again.
Off in a very similar way to Watson, and he hits the wall less hard, so we get away with one that time round. Second stop made by Verdi now, as it just has been by Mark Hilly as well, who clearly wants to get out of the traffic and make that final stop very, very early on indeed. But again, it's turn 13. It's a completely unnecessary sausage curb, I will point that out, but it's making it very challenging as Kane Ryder there finds the final corner pretty challenging. And Sebastian Eskandari, his teammate, will, I suppose, save him there from losing any places.
Yes, I think the double curb saved him there. There are Formula One style double curbs at corner exit at the final corner. Also here at the exit of turn 3, just right there, those few white triangles there, and also at the exit of turn 13 as well. It does allow you to take a little bit more out of the exit of those turns, but you got to remember that they have their own curbstones as Eskandari moves past Ryder into second place. That will swap up the battle for the top 3 and maybe give Edwards a little advantage. But one thing that I have noticed from a lot of drivers, especially at the exit of 13, is if you run beyond the limit of that double curb, the left side of the car just drops away and you completely lose control. So another little subtle aspect to this circuit the drivers need to keep track of.
This meantime is maybe another reason why Hilly pitted, unless this is... Oh, wow! Big spin, and what a great bit of driving that was from one of the Max Boost drivers to avoid getting hit there. Great presence of mind, and how they were able to see what they were doing. I'm not sure, it was Sam Mort. How he saw what was going on here to avoid Hilly is amazing, because he's in complete peripheral vision there at that stage, but throws it off through the gravel, brings it back on again. Sam Mort's still going. Hilly getting himself back going again after that was after his stop, by the way. Sam Mort's also made his final stop already, but goodness me, that is one of the best bits of avoiding action we've seen all season.
Yeah, it's so difficult to pull off as well, because when you're in high commitment mode in that part of the circuit, you're just trying to carry as much speed as you can from corner to corner to keep the downforce and the grip up. It can be very difficult to interrupt that muscle memory, so to speak, and fortunately Sam Mort is switched on. So is Craig Edwards as he tries his best to go for the move here on Kane Ryder and get up onto the podium. I'm sure he's aware by now that he has a chance at second in the championship with Rihanna's issues. So let's see what he can do here. Wasn't able to get past Kane Ryder initially, but maybe the chance will present itself later on in the lap.
And he's in danger here, Edwards, of getting caught behind Ryder at a time when those front two are getting away. So this is getting quite urgent here. He needs to either make the pass or make a stop, or just make a change of some description to stay with the leaders here. Otherwise he's going to find it very, very difficult, especially with an impending longer stop likely than the 3 in front, because he's short feels likely to get back with them again after the first stint of this race. So he's got a lot of thinking to do here in the next couple of moments as they now come through the right-hander of the penultimate turn and then the last one. And which of these options does he decide to take? He goes on again, so I think he's absolutely got to get past Ryder here soon, but the way his body language is at the moment, it doesn't look like a driver desperately trying to get past Kane Ryder, who's certainly desperate to defend from him, because you can see him weaving around on the straight, but Edwards showing no interest at all.
Yes, well, I am teammates with Craig Edwards, and I have been for a number of years. I can tell you that he doesn't play those games, you know, weaving in the draft, trying to break it. He doesn't care about any of that. He knows that he can gain a bit more just by staying where he is. McGee moving back past Doug Gowans, meanwhile, for 9th, just in time for Angus Milne and Tom Donoghue to arrive on the scene. With it looks like pretty equal pit stop times between them. Donoghue taking the longest service out of all of them, may have the heaviest car at the moment, but that's going to be far from it for Doug Gowans and Madeline McGee. Thank goodness the entry to the corner is so open. McGee had plenty of space to open the steering and saw Gowans coming from a mile off.
There are certain points on this circuit where these cars look tiny and this circuit looks massive, and that was thankfully one of them, because they did need the space, those two, to avoid contact. And Gowans again having to just back off through this sector as Angus Milne gets very close, but look at them again going to slightly wider and wider. And that's, by the way, the re-entry point of the very long 8-kilometre GT circuit. That's where they re-enter again, going through a left-hander at that part of the racetrack. But Gowans not able to regain that place, not on this lap anyway, not immediately. He's also not that far behind McGee. However, Milne and Donoghue are right there now, and you get the feeling Angus Milne isn't going to wait here as well. So Gowans has got to make sure this one overtake doesn't turn into a few.
Indeed, McGee with a bit of breathing room as Ryan Borg pits ahead of them, first of the top 10 to make his final stop. And we'll see how long this stop is for Ryan Borg. That'll give us an idea as to pit stop lengths for everybody else. As up the inside then, the opportunity opens for Angus Milne. It didn't look like Doug Gowans was very interested in fighting that one too hard.
No, it's interesting really, because that's a couple of places now in 2 laps really, in the same way, and that comes after, of course, fighting so hard to get past Madeline McGee in the first place a little bit earlier on, but that's not been too big of a defence there at all. This meantime, here's Anthony Pate, another one of those Silver Class Championship rivals who are starting to fall by the wayside to Miguel Costa Texeira. Big spin through the grass. I'm not even sure what layout that connects, to be honest with you, but there's another access road that that brings you back onto the main circuit, and he's just gone through it there again. Lots of those happening out here tonight, it's fair to say. A very technical circuit that has certainly challenged these drivers tonight, especially through here, through turn 13. That was Gowans straddling that double curb you were talking about. These cars almost feel too small for those kind of curves. Actually feel like they get slightly overcome by those curves a little bit at times. And Gowans was very much straddling it there as he comes now through the final couple of corners. Again, we'll see another one of these on the outside of the final turn. And it's this time, it's Tom Donoghue. We'll see whether it's going to be 3 in a row for Gowans.
Righto, slipstream activated, warp speed for our league owner at FDL, but Donoghue decides not to go for the move. Interesting.
Oh, you can understand, I suppose. There's still a pit stop to be made here, and still plenty of time left in this race. The limit for making the final stop, by the way, should be lap 31, which we're still 6 laps away from, so 6.5 for those guys. So if you can save a bit between now and then, it might help. Starting to see a few spins through here. So Mark Hilly has gone for one recently, and Dylan Little adding his name to that list as well. I do wonder whether this is because we're sort of 40 minutes into the race and these tyres have got 25 laps on them now, or whether it's just the fact that this race is getting older and therefore more likely to see more spins in more places. But it is interesting that this is starting to happen past the halfway stage.
Yeah, the track temperature has gone up by 2 degrees since the start of the race, and I don't think that's a big enough change to really even be worth talking about. I think it is basically just the tires wearing down and maybe drivers pushing a little bit too hard at those flat out areas. Remember, those spins are happening at a part of the circuit where it's a sharp turn, but it is flat out, so you need to be careful of that. Edwards into pit lane, by the way, and he'll be the next people our front runners. Oh no, yeah, I couldn't help but notice that he did have an initial stop time show up on my timing, a half a second. I think that tells me he's had another run in with the attenuator, and it could be another rear lockup on the way into the pits. Oh wow, look at the damage there for Edwards. You can barely see it in the background, but he's clearly missing the entire front end of his car.
Oh dear, that looks like a big hit as well.
Oh yeah, he didn't even hit the attenuator. He went into the left-hand side, the end of the runoff area.
You say that? I think he's ended up there because he's hit the inside wall there as well. I think he's hit both. But
yeah.
Let's see if we can see a bit more clearly again in a moment. Just what's happened here. I think he's hit the pit wall that everyone's been hitting on the right hand side, and he's bounced into the outside wall because of that, but maybe that is not the case. We will find out again in a moment as these guys continue to fight their way through. By the way, Milne, Gowans and Donahue. Amanda McGee missing from this group because she's gone and caught Alex Stevens for 6th position, so it's all changed here, but in favour of McGee in these last couple of moments. Now let's see how this happened to Edwards.
Yeah, I just went back and checked myself, and you're right, Ewan. You'll see him get on the brakes, lock up the rears, get into the right side attenuator, and then bounce off into the left side wall. So he had to make a bit of a 3-point, call it a 5-point turn at that point. 6, 7, 8. Goodness me, that's disastrous for Edwards. Lost a ton of unnecessary time as a result of that. But that's sometimes what happens, especially in these open wheelers where you downshift too fast or you get on the brakes too hard just to desperately slow down for the pits. The car will spin. Take 2 between Tom Donahue and Doug Gowans, and Donahue sails through but collects a bit of the curb at the exit of turn 1, which will open up the inside of turn 3 potentially for Gowans. Does not decide to fight it. I think Gowans is maybe a bit down on pace or confidence or a combination of the two there.
Yeah, maybe. It's definitely been going the wrong way. Although ironically, they're all gaining pace as they go on because there's a steady stream of pit stops here. I think anyone who's involved in that 18, especially if you're sort of in the midfield there and you got caught up in the real traffic jam on the way into the pit lane last time round, is going to vow not to do that again. But we'll see whether that's actually possible in the next laps of this race. There may be too many drivers trying to complete the same strategy in the next 4 laps or so, but that will all become clear. Out front, by the way, we haven't really spoken about it, but Danny Davison is starting to lead this race by some margin, and he's actually into the pit lane now, and there is one big danger point of this race for the remainder complete for him. Ryder very nearly joined him, but on accident. Mark Healy's going to unlap himself from him. But our race leader in, but the gap before was about 3 seconds or so for Danny Davison.
Yeah, he was on an absolute tear, wasn't he? Hilly goes off the circuit at, well, then he spins again at turn 3. Oh dear, this, I tell you what, for the driver who came into this series as the reigning champion, it has not been a good season for Mark Healy. He's been beset with issues and been assaulted from all sides all through the season. And I think he's just wanting to get it to the checkered flag at this stage. Texera, meanwhile, silver class leader and effective champion at this stage, has decided to come into the pit lane for his final stop. I wonder where that's going to put him versus his other silver class competitors. Stop completed about 7 seconds. That's sort of on the longer side, but looking at this pit exit here, you really get a sense for how slow the pit speed limit is here. I don't think we even talked about that. It's hard enough to slow down from the racetrack with how short the pit entry is, but the pit speed limit is only 40 kilometers per hour at this circuit. I mean, that just says it all.
Yeah, yeah. It certainly doesn't help when we're talking about the pit entry here. It's not necessarily the sort of speed that it is, but the difference in speed to what you would be doing if you were still on the racetrack, I think, is very important. And to slow down to 40 k's from whatever it is, might be about 200 to be honest. So they're coming out the final. Maybe that's a bit too much, but at the final corner, and it's a big decrease as Sebastian Eskandari is into the pit lane. Now Davison has come out in clean air in 10th, so I was fearing a little bit that he'd be with these guys, and that could trip him up. But as Milne comes into the pit lane as well, Davison should retain a nice lead unless Eskandari has something up his sleeve here in this final pit stop of the season. He's already on his way out, so it's not going to be a big gap. And, well, it will be close indeed. Davison will lead, but it's not by the seconds margin that he had before these pit stops.
Yeah, Eskandari's pit stop was only about half a second quicker than Davison's, but his overall pit lane time, 1.2 seconds quicker. So Eskandari gained all of that on getting the entry right, the exit right, and getting in and out of his pit box a little bit more efficiently than Davison was able to manage. Very nicely done indeed. Also, I double-checked the car's speed coming out of the final corner as they passed pit entry. You're right again, Ewan. It was bang on 200 k's an hour when the lane splits off.
Well, that was complete guesswork, by the way, because we don't even measure speed in kilometres an hour here. So I was complete. That sounds about right, doesn't it? It's about 126, 5, whatever miles an hour.
125.
Oh, there we go. So
that's my train simulator experience coming in there.
The conversion there. It's quite hard to I didn't learn my 1.6 timetable at school, but anyway. Thomas Hin's into the pit lane meantime. Another day in which he's done quite well, not being noticed by anybody. Well, not by me anyway. We'll see where he comes out in the unfolding of this in a moment. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be another top 10, having not had much go on around him. Sam Mort, meantime, is on the back of Marcus Knitska, and in terms of the Silver Class Championship battle, we've seen our last pit stop of the day from Miguel Costa Texeira, so Jackie Chung, Jake Bollard and Matt Cesaro being in front of him is not of concern for the moment. Looks like the eventual winner of this class may get a double victory, 2 in a row in the last 2 weeks, possibly to crown that as those in behind, Morton and Rihanna, 2 gold class drivers go off behind Knitska there.
It's so difficult to see Rihanna's checking the state of his tyres, I think, or the state of his car, depending on how many adventures he's had. That left-hander at turn 14 is incredibly difficult to get right. It's faster than it looks by a long way, but if you overcook it even slightly, you're going to suffer because the track drops away on the exit and you end up having to scrub the fronts to try and keep the car on the racetrack. Pit stop completed just behind there, meanwhile, for not Mitchell Albert, I don't think. Actually, I think it might have been Mitchell Albert that just jumped out there, but we'll see. It looked like one of the Turbo Bros cars. Yeah, it wasn't our friend Mitchell Albert there. But for the moment, 10.5 minutes remain in the race, and we're still waiting on pit stops from Ryder, Bartine, not McGee, because she's just come in. Doug Gowans is going to follow her in. And then we still have Jackie Chung and Tesoriero and O'Neill ready to come into the pits.
Indeed. And it will be their final stops of the season. Indeed, the final stops we're going to see from anybody this season in the final 10 minutes of the race. That's why Donahue is on the podium at the moment. Although it's been a decent season for league admin. It's 10th place at the moment, but that's likely. There's a lot of very close gaps there. Bizarrely, because he is 10th in the field. Very bizarrely, because it's such a specific position, he's finished 10th 4 times That's very random, and that's not really relevant as a fact, but it is true. And he seems to be running sort of around that region again here today, so I guess exactly deserves the position in the championship he's found himself in at the moment, because that's where he is right now. This is Milne on Gowans, dear me, on the way towards turn 5. That's quite tight on the inside, but as I say, the downforce for these two will see them through. Milne on the inside line will get the plate.
No!
Oh, new spin! He drops it on the exit. You've got to be careful with your right foot in these cars, especially from such low speed. And Milne throws away the overtake he's just made.
It's a shame there for Angus Milne, and I can't believe it's taken me this long in the season to mention this, but these cars have turbocharged engines, so when that turbo kicks in on the exit of a corner, you're suddenly dealing with a lot more power than you'd anticipate. So I think that might have caught him out there.
Let's see it again. He's on a tight line here, of course, as well, so he'll be just a little bit more steering lock on at that stage in the corner compared to the other times he's been through that turn, and just a little bit over ambitious. This is Alexei Watson, who is still running, by the way, has still been running from since he had his crash. He goes for a spin through turn 3. I must admit to having never been, as Mark Healy also has trouble here for the penultimate turn. Right foot again for him. I must admit to have never been in the position of Alexei Watson here, sort of knowing you've lost out in a championship battle so early on in the piece. It must be a really demoralising last 45 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever it is for him.
Yeah, I haven't been in the position where I've lost a championship either, you know, really early on in the final round, but I do know what it's like to lose any chance of gaining positions or any chance of a win, and let me tell you, you're just going through the motions at that point. Just trying your best to stay in the session and stay present, you know, hit your marks, control your car. All you can do is just drive the best race you can from there and hope that positions come to you, whatever that may be, and where you finish is where you finish.
Meantime, stop for the final time this season. Lap 32, in fact. That's good fuel saving from Giuliano Sanese here tonight, going further than our estimations. Still 7 minutes short of the end of the race, though, as is designed in this series. So Danny Davison will lead. Sebastian Escandari will be second. Kane Ryder will be third. It's a max boost 1-2-3, which maybe just underlines this season as a whole better than we could ever describe it. Sam Mort, meantime, is still on the back of Knitska, who's putting up a really good fight, I've got to say, here against two of the fastest gold drivers. Now, the standings don't reflect that in Sam Mort's case, but he joined us very late, of course, and had the dream debut at Montreal. In case you weren't with us, a pole and a victory in his first sprint race, and a pole in race 2 as well. Unfortunately, since then, it's not been quite so good for him. As he gets into the slipstream here from Knitska, he will move through, but it's taken quite a long time for these gold class drivers compared to what you'd expect.
Yeah, I think that just tells me that Knitska really came to play at this final round. He knew that he was in with a mathematical chance at the Silver Class Championship, so obviously put in a lot of effort, but it seems in the end, without much fuss, he is going to let Sam Mort and Jackson Rihanna through, and he'll still have a very well-earned 18th place finish as long as he can keep Jackie Chung behind him. Speaking of Chung, he is starting to make those gains. He only sits about 9/10 of a second behind, and his previous lap, well, not much to talk about because it was an out lap. I suppose we'll have to wait until the end of this lap to see what Chung's late race pace is really like.
We certainly will. So, just over 5 minutes to go in this race tonight. Miguel Costa Texeira, as long as he doesn't make any mistakes, is on his way to a silver class title. Started the day trailing Alexei Watson by just 4 points, but the myriad of problems that Watson has had, including now being outside the top 30, it's going to be easily overhauled, and he will distance the rest of the field as well. He's going to look like he's ended up quite a long way in front of the rest, actually, by the end of the results calculated, but We know that's not the case quite in reality. Dean O'Neill's now gone for a spin through turn 14. Between 14 and 15 there, found himself on the outside of those two corners. Notice Mark Hilly was off as well. I don't know how brief that was. It's just a pretty simple spin through turn 14 for Dean O'Neill, who just gets himself out of the way in time and is down to 25th as a result. Another one to add to the list, really, of quite a long list actually tonight of the problems that various different drivers have had on this circuit.
Yeah, it's been your typical final round, quite a bit of drama, but some races going a lot better than others. I have to say that Giuliano Sinise, I think, has been one of the star performers of the day, as well as Thomas Hinz. Sinise is up 10 positions to round out your top 10. Hinz sits fourth, having gained 8 positions, so very impressive from those two. We'll keep our eyes peeled on Sam Mort and Jackson Rihanna as they continue to jet away here, and keep an eye here on Sinise, who is chasing down Madeline McGee. Sinise only just out of the pit lane, so we'll see what his lap time is this time around, but he's been shadowing McGee this whole lap, and well, he's not that much faster, but 1.5 tenths isn't nothing.
Well, absolutely. So 2 drivers inside the top 10 with a battle late on here in this season. It's going to be 2 laps to go when they get to the line next time around because of the lead for Danny Davison, which still is just about a second. Maybe a window into what we could see next season, which, to remind you, by the way, begins on January the 13th with the new series of the Super Formula Lights Championship. In between times, there's a Formula 4 recruitment series for you to join us to enjoy, starting next week. Coming to you from Phillip Island. It's going to be a rude awakening to that series, that's for sure. So make sure you join us again next week for that. It is going to be a very good season in between times, before the Christmas break and before the next season gets underway. Rihanna past Mort. Again, 2 top drivers fighting quite a long way down for 16th position in the final couple of laps of the season.
Yes, Mort, as you mentioned, with the dream debut, but it only went, well, I mean, it didn't go downhill, but it was a pretty bumpy ride from there on out. Yeah, it could only, yeah. You get a 100% win record your first time out, and you think, oh dear, I got to race again. Makes the move on Rihanna at turn 13, who, Rihanna, I think, is gaining a bit of a reputation as an eternal bridesmaid in this championship. Mort comes up on Brodie McConkey, who's a little bit slower than he expects at the apex of 14. Meanwhile, yeah, I think these two have a lot to prove coming into next season.
Absolutely. It's always the exciting thing, isn't it, about a final race? It almost gives you, maybe if you use a bit of hindsight, always gives you a bit of a window into what the future may hold as far as some of these drivers' performances. Sam Mort very close to Brodie McConkey. This is, again, another 2 top drivers battling for 15th. McConkey defending the inside line. Oh. Sam Mort goes for the up and under. I thought we'd see a bit more of that tonight. That was expertly executed, though, right at the end of the race from Sam Mort. And Jackson Rihanna is just going to pick up the pieces. Much less work went into that overtake, but that one from Sam Mort was very nicely executed.
Yeah, indeed it was. Love seeing a nice sweeping over-under maneuver. And we see that Marcus Konieczka is now getting involved in the fight too, as well as Jackie Chung. Brodie McConkey quite slow in these late stages of the race, which is interesting because he only pitted 12.5 laps ago. Jackson Rihanna and Sam Mort pitting 14 and 17 laps ago, respectively. I would have expected that McConkey would be able to have a bit more stability underneath him as a result of, basically just pitting a little bit later, but regardless, it's been a tough one for all 3 of those drivers you see ahead of Marcus Konieczka here. Just about to come up on the timer hitting 0, and whatever lap Danny Davison is on will be the final lap, and he's already made his way out of turn 3, so looks like it's just going to be a cruise from here for the number 75 as we wait with bated breath to see how this 5-way fight ends. Rihanna cutting back on Sam Mort. Oh, look at that! The door opens to the inside for Brodie McConkey. He's going to move back through, ready for the final lap. Goodness me, things are starting to change in the blink of an eye.
Sam Mort couldn't close the door once it was ajar there. They all just kept coming through. Here comes Brodie McConkey in towards turn number 1 as well on Jackson Rihanna. Oh, and Rihanna edges him off the road through turn 1 there. A little bit of feistiness from these guys finally at the end of this race. Rihanna gets away with 15th position in front of McConkey, and Konitska and Chung fighting for 2nd and 3rd in class are just in behind there as well. But time has officially elapsed on this season. The hour-long finale at the Bend Motorsports Park coming to a close, and it's Danny Davison who's going to come through and take a victory. He might well as well get a top 5 in the championship as a result of this. It's his 3rd podium in the last 4 weeks, but this one on the top step. Danny Davison wins at the Bend to take the final race of the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship, supported by Everything Simulated. But the champion in behind, Sebastian Eskandari, 2 seconds behind in the end, is on the podium again. Every race but one, he has finished in the top 3 this season, including for the second half of the season, only finishing outside the top 2 on 1 occasion. One of the most dominant performances in a championship season you're ever likely to see, capped off by Sebastian Eskandari, who ends the season with over 770 points, by far the most we've ever seen in this series.
And Miguel Costa Texeira comes across the line to win in the silver class, and by our calculations that will give him the silver class championship. Incredible second half of the season for Texeira. He came into this round behind Alexei Watson, and well, it was almost over for Watson coming out of qualifying with the 10-second post-race penalty he has hanging over his head. All Texeira had to do was manage his race from there, and those donuts are going to taste super sweet.
I certainly will. I don't know how his expectations were going into tonight. Well, I suppose we'll have to ask him, but if he wasn't expecting too much, then he'll be absolutely elated now. It's the traditional donuts at the end of the season for everybody going to continue on. They're going to be much better for Miguel Costa Texeira. By the way, just stopped and congratulated, it looks like, by one of his teammates there, as he came to the end of that one. Texeira on the Proline Esports team. It also has Brodie McConkey, the gold class driver we were just seeing battling just behind him. Quite bizarre to see those two finishing in that order, but they won't mind at all. It's got them a class championship here tonight, and we'll chat to him as well in a moment once we've seen the race results tonight from the final race of the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship, supported by Everything Simulated from the Bend Motorsports Park. We'll bring those up in a second, but Danny Davison has taken the overall race victory, and as I say, with it, maybe a top 5 in the championship. Thomason's got to 4th though. Again, see what I mean? He got to 4th in the race again, so might have done enough to hold that off. But we'll have to just wait and see when the results are calculated. Hopefully Tom's going to be on it for us to see what the results will be before we leave tonight. But Danny Davison wins the race ahead of Sebastian Eskandari by 2.2 seconds. Kane Ryder couldn't quite overtake his teammate towards the end there, but it's a max boost 1-2-3 with the Jinx Shifters. Thomas Hinz finishing in 4th. Scott Bartime rounds out the top 5 with a bit of a gap then back to Craig Edwards. Ryan Borg next to Tom Donahue, Manny McGee and Julian Sanese rounding out the top 10. Alex Stevens was in that group, so was Doug Gowans. Angus Milne was then down to 13th with Miguel Costa Texeira, our silver class champion, in 14th place. Jackson Rihanna just behind him with Brodie McConkey there as well. This was all in that big group we saw with Marcus Konitska and Jackie Chung as well. Sam Mort was just disconnected from it at the line after getting overtaken late on. Jake Robolot rounded out the top 20. 21st went to Matt Tesoro with Anthony Bate and Dan Ackland next in line. Did a little. Mark Healy running at the top 25. James Castle was on the lead lap just about. Dion O'Neill 1 lap down with Nathan Verney, Vaughan Ryder, Mitchell Albert and Alexi Watson. Matthew Vince retired early. I don't think Daniel Byrne took the start in the end, sadly for him. Let's have a chat then to the Silver Class winner and champion, shall we? Since that was up for grabs at the start here tonight. Sorry, which we're dragging him away from a conversation, so apologies for that. But congratulations from us, first of all, on a 14th place overall, but more importantly, the class win and the championship as well. How are you feeling, first of all, at the end of tonight?
Oh, over the moon, man, honestly. I feel like I'm almost doing a Max Verstappen here and then coming back late and sort of charging to a championship, but yeah, it's honestly I've been thinking about it for since the Sebring last week. It was such a good race, and we swung 18 points, and then obviously I haven't seen what happened to Alexi, but I know that Alexi went out early, and I just knew then that I just had to finish. Obviously, me and Kinitska were battling at the start, and I sort of didn't want to get involved. There was a lot of messy chaos in the first couple laps, and I didn't want to drop too far back because I wanted to still challenge for a silver win tonight, but I knew that with Alexi out, I needed to just make sure I scored 4 points, or 5 because I would have lost on count back. So yeah, had to focus on that. But yeah, me and Kinitz had a good battle there. I eventually I got him and sort of in that middle of that second stint and built a gap when he made a mistake, and that was it. Took tyres so that I was safe, and yeah, feeling great, honestly, and a big ups to all the Proline boys for their assistance this year.
How confident were you that you could overturn that margin at the end? Because I was talking about this just now, the elation you get at the end, if you're not expecting to be able to sort of overhaul that advantage, the elation at the end must be sort of even more incredible. So how likely do you view it that you will be able to do this? Yeah,
look, I always thought it was possible, and like coming into the season, obviously it was always a goal, win the championship and grab a team's championship for Proline Esports. But after the first couple of rounds, I had a really bad Mexico, got in a couple incidents, and honestly was a bit down in the dumps. Was like, oh Jesus Christ, there's my drop round. And then a few other things happened throughout the season. I was really far behind. Obviously Donington, I had a big swing, ended up 6th there and effective silver leave winner. Obviously Mitchell got promoted to gold after that race, so I'm taking that as another win. And so I thought, oh, okay, we're on here. That was obviously a big chunk of 60 points, but I was still a fair way back, and with another round to lose, I knew that the Mexico round would have to count as a drop. It couldn't count as a drop, sorry. So yeah, look, I always thought it was possible, but like my teammate Bate was in a lot better of a position sort of a couple races ago, and unfortunately had a couple bad races. So really, I've just come on form at the right time, right place, and managed to jag this one.
Well, congrats on the win tonight, and therefore taking the title as well, Miguel. Enjoy celebrating tonight.
Yeah, thank you. It'll be a good one. It's been a really tough 12 months for me personally, and I want to dedicate this one to Grandma. She passed away early this year, and she bought me my Sim Gear as one of my last passing gifts to me. So I just want to dedicate this one to Vorlena. Really missing her after a 5-year battle of cancer, and thanks to the Proline boys for all their effort this season. Let's go next year.
Thanks very much. That's Miguel Costa-Teixeira chatting to us at the end here tonight, winning the Silver Class Championship with a race win and a great turnaround, a great last couple of weeks for him to take that title. Let's go to the overall results now, and Danny Davison, who has taken the race here tonight from the Bend. Danny, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Congrats on winning the title, winning the race tonight from the Bend. 2 and a bit seconds in the end over your teammate Sebastian Eskandari. How confident were you at this circuit tonight? Because you looked very, very quick out there at the front.
Hi guys, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we raced this track last season, had a pole, and almost won the race second, and won another race, another league. So I was actually pretty confident for this track.
It certainly looked like it as well. I'm not sure whether you will have snagged a top 5 in the points in the end, but how do you sort of assess this season and the way that it's gone?
Season's been very up and down, to be honest. Yeah, some good highs, but also some bad races. I made some mistakes, so very up and down and inconsistent. But I really wanted to win a race to finish off the season, so I'm very happy that I managed that. But yeah, hopefully next season I can be more consistent.
Yeah, as you say, great run towards the end of the season. 3 podiums in the last 4 weeks. So congratulations on that run of form and the win here tonight. And thanks for coming to chat to us at the end of the race.
Thanks, guys. See you next time. Cheers.
Thanks very much. That's Danny Davison, winner tonight for the first time this season. The first time in a while, I think, for Danny as well. Sebastian Eskandari finishes second here tonight and joins us now. Seb, welcome in. Congrats on a second place finish in the end. How were you feeling out there on the circuit tonight? It's not often that you've qualified on pole this season and not come home to take the victory. In fact, it's only happened once before this. Were you perhaps not particularly enjoying this circuit, or was Danny just quicker tonight? What was the story at the front?
Yeah, hi guys, how you? Yeah, it was just a bit of a tricky race with the tyre wear. Yeah, this track, I really love this track. It's just really fast and flowing, but it was just sort of a bit tricky towards the end with the tyre wear. And then I had a deforming tyre, so I just had to really lay low at the end.
But it's, in the context of this season, it's another podium and another second place finish as well. Just how do you look back on this season? Obviously, knowing that you were going to be champion before this round even began, your gap at the end to Jackson Miano, given them being down the field tonight, is going to be edging towards 200 points at the end of this season, which is pretty unprecedented in this series. Only one finish outside the podium places. How do you sort of look back and assess this season?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a good season. I mean, there's always things that you can improve on, like not having that outside the podium or just being more consistent in the race. But, I mean, we learned from all these things and we'll come back stronger in the next season.
Well, congrats on the title and indeed another second place here tonight. And thanks for chatting to us at the end of the race.
Yeah, thank you. Also, congrats to Denny and Kane for the podium.
Absolutely, an all max boost lockout. Sebastian Eskandari, second place here tonight at the Bend here, and of course our champion as well with the most points we've ever seen in this series. Kane Ryder now joins us as well from third position here tonight. Kane, congrats on a third place finish and a great result for yourself. Only just coming in behind the series champion in the end and hold off Thomas Hinz for a podium. How are you feeling at the end of that race?
More relieved than anything. Thomas was just absolutely steaming towards us. You know, we thought we'd get through the whole thing without tyres, but obviously that was the wrong call. But hey, one more lap and I would have been fourth, but here I am.
For the team as a whole, this has been an extraordinary season for Team Max Boost. It's going to be an over 200 point gap at the front of the team's championship. Countless race wins as well, including one for yourself. Easy to forget being so long ago, but one for yourself at the Mexico race to begin this season. Just from a team perspective, just how pleased are you that you've been able to have such dominance over this field this season?
Yeah, look, we've been really stoked. We do have a little bit of an advantage. You know, there are a few of us who are up the front that we can tow off and things like that. So we always generally get pretty good start positions. But nah, everyone in the team, you know, they put in a bit of time to this. So it's always good to get a bit of reward for their effort.
Well, congratulations on a third place here tonight, Kane, second podium of the season, and thanks for chatting to us at the end of the race as well.
No worries. Thank you, guys, and good job on this season.
Thanks so much. Kane Ryder, third place here tonight. Coming a bit of an hour-long race specialist, winning the Mexico race, bookending that with a third place finish at the end of this season as well. Well, that's just about it from us here this season. Over the course of the last 8 weeks, Reece, we've had some fantastic racing. There's the final tally, by the way. 773 points in the end for Sebastian Eskandari. As I mentioned before, the top 13 who were that before were largely going to stay the same, even with Aidan Coote not here. Ryan Borg, though, provisionally just get in front of Sam Mort and may well be in the Australian Open Wheel Nationals to round out this year, representing the FDL League. So we'll get that finalised, of course, and see which 13 indeed it will be to take us into that race. But a fitting end to this season, really, I'd say, Reece. Max Boost all over the front of the field, and it's been the silver class where there's been more to talk about as far as the championship is concerned, because that winning margin in the end for Eskandari is going to be at around 200 points, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, certainly is an incredible season overall from Eskandari. Excuse me. And worth pointing out as well that Craig Edwards and Danny Davison rounding out that top four. Davison taking the win here at the Bend, and Edwards managing to get himself a well-earned third place in the overall standings. And Miguel Costa Texera, silver class champion, he pops up right there at the end of the top 20 in the end, gaining 4 championship positions from that, which is quite impressive as well. But yes, we do take a little bit of a rest from Super Formula Lights. At least we will be back this time next week for the start of the recruitment series, the Formula Ford series, 4 rounds of course taking place through to the end of the year before we get ready to go on the 13th of January for the new season of FDL.
Just to put it into perspective, by the way, one last thing before we wrap up. Miguel Costa Texera was on about 100 points after the first, or 2 weeks ago, before the last week's race. And in the last 2 weeks, he scored about 80 points to come through and take the title. It's been a remarkable last couple of weeks. But yeah, we will be back indeed in just 7 days' time for a new series. It's pretty cramped at this time of year, of course, getting it in just in time before the Christmas break. So the next 4 weeks indeed, for the 2nd, 9th, 16th and 23rd of December, we'll be racing same time, same place in the Formula Ford series, which again has maximum entries. Congratulations to all the guys at FDL for having such success with these series. I'm going to end 2025 on a high. I hope that you'll join us for that. The opener coming to you from Phillip Island in just 7 days' time. Hope you join us for that. But for now, I've been Neil O'Leary alongside Reece Gardner with George Cook behind the cameras of the broadcast this season. Look forward to your company either next year for the next season of the Super Formula Lights Championship or next week for the Formula 4s. Whatever it will be, it's goodbye for now.